What is up everyone, this is the Link, and in this video I will be doing something different. I will be reviewing a LEGO set, and not just any LEGO set but the LEGO Classic 90 Years of Play set. The year 2022 marks the 90th anniversary of the LEGO Group from its humble beginnings in a workshop in Denmark to becoming one of, if not, the most popular toy company in the world. The set was released on May 1st, 2022 and cost 3,500 Philippine pesos. I wish all the kids out there good luck in convincing their parents to buy them this set or wait for Christmas. I can't remember exactly how I first came across the set other than the fact that Bionicle is represented here, which was enough to get old Bionicle fans like myself overjoyed. At this point, it's the reason why people would even choose to buy this set. Of course, this set was released as part of LEGO's 90 Years of Play line to celebrate the 90th anniversary of LEGO. This is the first set of the 90 Years of Play line, so I think I remember when people mistook this for the 90th anniversary set, which turned out to be the Lion Knight's Castle and the Galaxy Explorer. But hey, close enough I guess. Anyways, on to the review. We'll start with the box art. I like its vintage theme going on and makes it stand out from other LEGO classic sets we've seen before, though it's not the first time LEGO has used this kind of box art, as it was also used in past anniversary sets to celebrate the LEGO brick. And on this set, it's about the LEGO Group's entire history. It shows some of the models and the year they represent is shown below them, as well as the rainbow of parts on the bottom. The 90 Years of Play logo is shown on the bottom right to tell you the general idea behind this LEGO Classic set, like other sets we've seen before, but also because this set is part of LEGO's 90 Years of Play line to celebrate the 90th anniversary of the LEGO Group, in case that wasn't obvious enough. LEGO Classic sets have this thing on their boxes where it shows you the amount of pieces it comes with. The parts list of the 90 years set can be seen on the left side and on the bottom, so you can get a good look at the parts if you're considering purchasing the set at the store. If you want to look at the parts list online, you can do so by going to LEGO's website and viewing the PDF file of the instructions. They're found at the end of booklet 1. The back of the box shows the complete timeline and all the models that represent each old set across 90 years of LEGO history, plus the year the original set was released. I don't know if this needs to be said, but the way you read this timeline correctly is like how you write the number 2 or the letter Z. The middle row is the only problem here, but in my opinion, it's not that bothersome whatsoever. This is not the first time LEGO has remade old classic sets into smaller scale models. Back in 2018, LEGO released limited edition sets based on some of their old classic LEGO sets to celebrate 60 years of the LEGO brick. However, given their limited edition availability, they were very hard to come by. Note that the builds on the 90 years models are more simplified than the 60 years of the brick set, so even 5-year-olds who have this set can easily put these models together. The contents of the box contain 11 bags of pieces. 5 color-coded bags are included as with every other LEGO Classic set. The other 6 are numbered, and that is for those 15 or 17 models to be built. Alright, let's get to the models included. We'll go through each model by chronological order one by one. I'll be explaining the theme or background behind the model and then the model itself, and I'll throw in some bits of trivia here and there. The wooden duck is the most iconic of the earliest LEGO toys that were made out of wood, released in the early 1930s, way before they even made the plastic bricks we know today. The 90 years model did a great job of capturing the details of the original duck with just a few basic bricks, from the wings represented by a simple 2x3 green brick to the red wheels. The head of the duck is covered by a large 2x2 eyepiece, and a long 2x6 plate makes up the beak. For a first build, this is a really good model, though I'm a little unsatisfied with this version. If I were to redesign this, however, I would make the chassis wider like the original and add the LEGO string piece to really make it the duck pull toy from the early LEGO days. Additionally, this I believe is the only standard retail LEGO set to include the old duck toy. There actually were official LEGO sets that were of the duck, but they are much harder to come by than you initially think. The first set was exclusively given to LEGO employees in 2011 for Christmas. It was entirely brick built and actually had string included. The second set is only available at one place, and that is at the LEGO house over in Belleville, Denmark, and it's not even sold at LEGO's online store. This LEGO house exclusive better resembles the original duck in terms of design and color scheme, and features an opening and closing beak as you pull it. Once more, take a look at the box art. You'll see a sign behind the original duck, and when you translate it English, don't always trust Google Translate, it says only the best is good enough. That is the LEGO Group's motto, and from what I gathered, the wooden duck is not only a symbol of LEGO's earliest days, but a symbol of LEGO's high quality standards in their products even today. The story behind that is that one night, Ole Kirk Christensen's son Godfred told his dad that they saved a bit of money for their business by adding only 2 layers of varnish to some of their wooden duck toys. When Ole heard this, he ordered his son to take the boxes back to add the last layer of varnish to them to ensure that their quality remained consistent with their other toys. This taught Godfred a lesson on product quality and passed that lesson on to his son Kjeld and then to the LEGO group as we know today. That would in sign with the company's motto was carved by Godfred himself and hung at the original workshop. The motto is kept up until today, and it is why LEGO toys are of top tier quality even to this day. The next set of models represent the LEGO Town Plan set released in 1961. Although the 90 years model of the house doesn't seem to resemble any of the models seen in the original town plan in terms of overall structure, the 90 years model kept its style from 1961 from the red blocky roof complete with the brick chimney plus the window bricks. There is a small open space inside the model accessible through the back, so if you want to for some reason you can add microscale furniture inside. The other part of the model is this mini truck. The original town plan set featured vehicles, but they were not actually brick built. They were all separate molds like Hot Wheels cars. The 90 years model obviously uses a brick built model of one of the toy vehicles included, specifically this truck right here. What's interesting about this is that the original truck model had its front part in the more common yellow color, whereas the 90 years version used a slightly more orangey shade of yellow. My theory is that one of the designers actually had that truck as a kid and brought it to work while designing the set as a reference material, but when he took it out of the box, he probably didn't realize that it had been yellowing in there for years, so maybe this is why they chose the shade of yellow. I don't think that's what actually happened in the design process, okay? It's just my own theory. But as additional trivia, the town plan set was rebooted in 2008, although it looked nothing like the original 1960s version. But the man pictured on the box of the 2008 reboot of the town plan set is actually the same person who was on the 1961 box art. That person is Kjeld Kirk Christensen, grandson of the founder of LEGO, Ole Kirk Christensen. The first LEGO train was released in 1965 but did not come with any track for it to run on, and the wheels were the regular road wheels. 1966 introduced motorized trains and specialized tracks for them to run on, and that train itself is what the 90 years model is based on. The 90 years model is a simple micro build of that train from the 1960s. A lot of small details were accounted for from the original model to the 90 years model. A rounded brick makes up the front half of the train, or boiler if you will. Trains usually have rounded funnels, so they could have used a stud piece here, but the original model used square plates, so they used a 1x1 red plate to match that small detail. The roof of the original model used standard plates that made up a slanted roof, and I like that two 1x2 cheese slopes recreate that roof on the 90 years model. The original set had two coaches, one being a passenger coach and the other a mail coach. However, neither of those coaches seem to be remade here. Instead, it is only one coach that uses a simple 2x4 brick with a grey plate on top for the roof like on the original model. The train and the coach are connected by a ball and socket connection found on both ends on both models. At first, it seems weird on why there would be a connector on the front of the driver train, but the original set had that connector on the front as well, so that is probably excusable. Of course, this being LEGO, the open connectors leave room for you to create another copy of the coach to complete the train, or design your own to your imagination. LEGO Castle was first introduced in 1978 and is one of LEGO's classic themes alongside town and space. Its sets were among the first to introduce the LEGO minifigures we know today. The castle theme was brought back multiple times throughout the years, but the classic era of castle remains as one of LEGO's most iconic, and it was selected to be the theme for the special 90th anniversary set, which of course is the Lion Knight's castle. The iconic yellow castle set is of course what inspired the 90 years model. The original model used multiple base plates as it had this feature where it could open up if you want to make your castle look bigger. However, that feature is of course absent on the 90 years model as it is all built on a single 6x8 plate, which is interesting to note since the original yellow castle set's footprint was on a square base plate in its close configuration. The 90 years build is heavily simplified and blocky but still retains some detail from the original set. A yellow crate piece makes up the top of each castle tower, and the little pieces that stick out from the top resembles the small fence? I don't know what those things are called, but you get the idea. The original set had this movable drawbridge, which was pretty cool, but the drawbridge on the 90 years model is nothing more than an immovable red curved slope piece that is supposed to represent the red drawbridge in its down position. Up top, the middle tower's window is all red because of these 1x2 bricks with Technic holes. This detail could have been better in my opinion, but again, this is most likely to keep the build simple. Given how tall the 1x2 bricks make up most of the walls, especially with how they are oriented and placed, it leaves the mini castle exterior a bit plain and flat, especially on the front in my opinion. It's all one giant flat wall with a hole in the middle, but you can simply fix this by simply taking out the tall bricks on the side and repositioning them behind the gate and completely in front of the side towers. Of course, given that this is a LEGO Classic model, the build is supposed to be very simple to make and the parts are meant to be used for other models that you want to make yourself, so to a certain degree I can see why they went with this design. Just to share with you all, there is some room inside the castle, and after I finished building all the models, there are a handful of leftover pieces that I just dumped in the castle for storage. I guess if you have this mini castle on display and have not yet opened the 5 bags like I did at the time, you could kinda make it an extra piece container, and it shouldn't really ruin much of the model's image unless you look at the model at certain angles. LEGO Space is another one of the iconic classic themes that LEGO introduced in the late 1970s alongside Castle and Town. In 1979, LEGO released the Galaxy Explorer set on which the 90 years model is based on. Additionally, the Galaxy Explorer will be remade and redesigned for the modern day as a part of LEGO's 90 years of play line. The 90 years model is actually built on its side, which is the only model in the set with this distinction. They could have gone with plates that had diagonal cuts through them, but I'm glad they went in this direction with tall slope bricks for the wings. A LEGO bar piece makes up the tip of the spaceship that connects the 2 slope pieces. The small jet boosters on the side are remade with 1x1 grey cones, and the rocket boosters are remade with 2 pieces on the back. The windshields on the original model are recreated by 2 slope bricks in transparent yellow. Fun fact, according to designer George Gilliatt, this is actually the first time LEGO has released this piece in this specific color. Look it up for yourself. There is nothing really worth mentioning on the underside of this model, but with how much room the one stud layer of bricks leave, it almost looks like that the spaceship is somewhat hovering midair when viewed from certain angles. In terms of how it resembles the original set, they kinda did alright in my opinion. However, it looks like it only remade most of the front half of the ship and forgot to account for the back. They could have done something for the back part so it could look more like the original spaceship, but overall I'm pretty satisfied with this model. And you could tell that this is supposed to be LEGO Classic Space even without considering the missing detail at the back. Personally, I really like this Classic Space model. As a kid, I've always wanted that Big Benny spaceship from the LEGO movie, but sadly I passed that up in favor of the Constructomech since I can only get one. I could have gotten that for Christmas 2015, but then my interest shifted and it was too late. But I don't regret it really. The 90 years model kind of made up for that, so it was okay in the end. LEGO Fabuland was introduced in 1981. It was a theme intended for young children. Fabuland sets were of the standard LEGO system but utilized large special pieces so that kids could easily put them together with one another, as LEGO Fabuland was designed to transition young children from LEGO Duplo to the standard LEGO system. The theme introduced Fabuland figures, which had humanoid bodies and various animal heads. They were slightly larger than standard LEGO system minifigures but not as large as LEGO Duplo. The neat thing about this 90 years pair of models is that it is a near replica of the entire set it was based on and even kept the same scale, specifically Elton Elephant, released in 1981. The 90 years pair of models has almost everything the original Elton Elephant set had. The table, the mug, umbrella, even Elton Elephant of course. The only thing missing is the chair, but I don't think it even needed to be included since you can't really pose Elton here, except for his trunk. I like the use of a Technic macaroni piece for the trunk, but for the eyes, they should have used these eye pieces instead of the Wixhael eyes in my opinion. When you look closely, not all of the colors do not quite match with the original set. The umbrella was yellow, whereas in the 90 years model it is colored white. The table colors almost match. The bottom was brown, but the 4x4 round plate here in the 90 years model is tan, but at least the yellow mug stayed. For some reason, Elton Elephant here is wearing yellow pants, but in the original set, his pants were gray. Again, I have a theory on why they chose this design. A LEGO designer most likely swapped out Elton's grey leg piece for a yellow leg piece when he was playing with LEGO Fabuland as a kid, and it has been sitting in his bin like that for years, until he fished it out and brought it to work as a reference material to help design this set. Of course, that might not be what actually happened. LEGO Pirates was introduced in 1989 and is the first entirely new theme after the classic town, castle, and space themes. The theme first introduced LEGO minifigures without the standard and plain smiley face. The theme was briefly brought back in 2009 for its 20th anniversary, and it was brought back once again in 2015. The 90 years model is based on the Black Seas Barracuda set released in 1989, and in 2002 it was re-released again as part of the LEGO Legends line. The Black Seas Barracuda is also the inspiration of the 2020 LEGO Ideas set Pirates of Barracuda Bay, where the ship itself is an alternate build. Now we go to the 90 years model. I like the use of a 1x1 snot brick to represent the cannons of the original set to even replicating the pattern on the ship's base. The sail pattern on the original set was vertical, but here the sail is brick built with red and white elements to keep the build simple, which ended up making the pattern horizontal, and also to not have used some external elements like a sticker or a printed brick. The flagpoles at the top of the sails are represented by these cone pieces, though there are no small elements up top to represent the flag themselves. But I do like how they used some yellow plates for the details at the sides of the original ship. I'm okay with the use of a minifigure skull to represent the flag at the back of the original set, but what I am not really okay with is the front sail. I dig the use of a diagonal piece with a diagonal half 2x2 tile for its design, but that pattern is not repeated on the other side. The sail is connected to the front of the ship vertically thanks to this element, but that means it's placed on the more right side of the ship because you're meant to view the model from this angle. It feels a bit awkward seeing the other side as there is this lack of design on the front sail and the skull flag is missing in this view because it's a minifigure head. Just to add, the model would be pretty something if the skull piece I mentioned earlier was at the top of the sail, so it kind of shift the vibe of this model to a certain extent. LEGO introduced the Adventurers theme in 1998 and revolved around an adventurer named Johnny Thunder. The theme consisted of 4 sub-themes, namely Jungle, Orient Expedition, Dino Island, and the focus of the 90 years model, Egypt. The plot of the Egypt sub-theme is that Johnny Thunder and his crew travel to, well, Egypt to search for the Rigo Ruby. I believe one of their destinations is the Sphinx, in which the 90 years model is based on. The 90 years model recreated the Sphinx part of the Sphinx Secret Surprise set, or the Secret of the Sphinx depending on what it was called in your area. I like how the pattern of the Sphinx head crest replicates the red and blue pattern on the original set plus the little yellow crown bit on top. It's kinda funny to see the googly Mixel eyes on something serious and ancient like a Sphinx, seeing as the original set used bricks with Technic holes for the eyes, but I can see why they chose this design. There is a play feature on the original set where the pharaoh can appear and launch the ruby from its pedestal, though I would like to question the placement of the ruby element and why it's placed right by the obelisk instead of in front like in the original set, but that is easily fixable. I just wonder why the official build had it placed out in the open and on top of random foliage. Yes, the original set had foliage, but the resemblance is not even that close. Oh, and as for the scorpion on this model, yeah, there is a scorpion on the original set. The neat part of this model is the use of this 1x2x5 brick, as it is a straight up reissue of one of the actual pieces used in the original set. This piece also appeared in another set 2 years ago, that being the Haunted House set, which was packed with LEGO Adventurers references. Although the hieroglyphs do not match 1-to-1 between the original set and the 90 years version, it's nice to see LEGO bring this element back to the modern day. Fun fact, the hieroglyphs actually spell out LEGO from bottom to top, so that's interesting to note. Belleville was among the LEGO themes that primarily appealed to young girls. Before Belleville became a thing, LEGO already made some efforts to market their toys to the young feminine demographic through LEGO Scala, which were the typical doll houses like Barbie, and where some of its sets were real-life accessories that can be decorated with actual LEGO pieces, but it was short-lived. Girly themes returned to LEGO through Belleville, which returned to traditional LEGO system elements, featured sets themed after fantasy and fairy tales, and introduced doll-like figures almost similar to the ones found in the modern LEGO Friends set, albeit in a bigger scale but still smaller than Barbie dolls. The 90 years model is based on the Royal Carriage set that was released in 2000. It had the LEGO horse piece in the original set and the brick-built horses featured here. I find that the brick-built horse seems a little too tall for me personally. Of course they have to work with basic pieces and keep the build simple, but I will still give this official build a pass. Although the wheels were not gold in the original model, the pink arch pieces were carried over to the 90 years model, and I do like that they kept the blue diamond element detail at the top. The carriage has a socket on both the front and back, but the overall structure remains the same regardless of which way you connect the carriage to the horse. The only difference here is the direction that the frog is facing. Speaking of which, at first it seems weird on why there would be a frog included in this mini Belleville carriage, as the original set the 90 years model was based on never had the frog piece included. But there's actually significance behind this design choice, as the LEGO frog element was first introduced in 2000 in, you guessed it, a Belleville set. specifically the Queen's Room set, but it was only included there as a reference to the Frog Prince fairy tale. Alright, this is probably the star of the show, and if not, the reason why people would even want to get this set in the first place. Ladies and gentlemen, Chibi Tahu. Bionicle is a very important part of LEGO's history and is one of the most memorable LEGO themes ever. At the time, LEGO wanted to explore the narrative aspect of toys to save itself. Although they already did accomplish it with LEGO Star Wars, they found it hard to gain profit due to licensing. So LEGO sought to create their own IP where its sets were driven around the narrative, which led to Bionicle. It was originally gonna go for 20 years, but almost halfway through, the story started to get a bit complicated, and it was beginning to see a lack of new interest, which is why LEGO discontinued Bionicle in 2010, only to be rebooted in 2015. It was originally planned to run until 2017, but just like before, LEGO cancelled Bionicle halfway in 2016, probably due to lack of sales. The Bionicle set remade here is none other than Tahu, the Toa of Fire. I like how every detail of the original Tahu was captured in the 90 years model. Red feet, orange limbs, even the black connectors on the original model were represented by black 2x2 plates, and his fire sword is an actual fire piece now. A distinct feature of Bionicle was its variety of masks included in sets, so it only needed one universal piece to wear every mask available. That headpiece is represented by a 1x2 tall brick on the back with studs on its side to represent said piece. I can see how close the 90 years Kanohi How resembles the original mask, but in my opinion they should have just went for a jumper plate without the dish, as the How never had that round of a jawline, but the official build is good enough for me as the whole model itself is to the Bionicle community. Of course, like previous models, it uses 1x1 pixel eyes. That means you can give Tahu unique expressions I never thought a Bionicle character would ever make, let alone with googly eyes. This model is very special to Bionicle fans as it acknowledges the franchise in the modern day after being left in the dark for over half a decade. The fact that this simple and yet wacky model of Tahu was enough to get Bionicle fans excited just goes to show how much passion and love they have for the franchise, that it even spawned fan creations of Bionicle characters remade into the style of the 90 years model. This is the closest we have to getting a new Bionicle set in years, and while Bionicle Generation 3 may not be realizable in the near future, at least we have something that addresses one of LEGO's most beloved franchises and the passion its fans have for Bionicle. The LEGO City we know today was first launched in 2005 and is known for having a lot of sets based on various things you would find in, well, a city. The sub-themes range from construction, fire, emergency, train, police, etc. Though a lot of sub-themes have stuck around for years, arguably the most iconic sub-theme is the police line if you consider that very iconic. It is probably the first sub-theme you think of when you first hear LEGO City, though the emergency line gets an honorable mention all because
a man has fallen into the river in LEGO City.
Although we've had many iterations of a LEGO police station, the 90 years model is based on the first police station set released in 2005. Now when you look at the models side by side, it should be pretty easy to spot the color difference. The 90 years model uses dark blue instead of black like the original model, but there is an explanation for that. The printed police sign actually came from another set, that being the modular police station which came out a year ago. The sign from that set was also dark blue, so that's probably why the 90 years model is dark blue instead of black. As for the details, the transparent yellow cones make up the spotlights and half of the Lego bar pieces stick out to make up the jail cell. A small 1x4 printed tile marks the small parking lot like in the original set. There's only one column of windows on the 90 years model, but there is still room at the top. And a 2x2 half stud half tile piece makes up the helipad where a microscale helicopter sits there. It's held by only 2 studs, so you can easily take it off. This is not my first time seeing a microscale helicopter with a 2 stud width, but I like how they used a 2x3 pentagonal tile for its tail. The original helicopter model used a 2-blade propeller, whereas in the 90 years model, a 3-blade propeller piece is used and it is attached via a Technic pin so you can spin it. LEGO Technic was first introduced as the Expert Builder series in 1977, but was renamed to Technic in 1984. The first Technic sets used modified system elements to connect to Technic gears, beams, and axles. The first Technic beams were those familiar system bricks with holes on their sides to connect the Technic pieces I just mentioned. It wasn't until 2000 where Technic beams became the kind of pieces we know today, as they began to ditch the system studs and the ends of beams became rounded, but we can still find the old Technic system beams today. Since then, Technic has evolved to become become its own building system, but you can still find Technic pieces in standard sets under the main LEGO system, and sometimes the other way around. The set that the 90 years model is inspired by is the motorized excavator set released in 2010. It's a complete remote control working excavator, however the set encountered a lot of issues. LEGO has offered full refund or credit for their online store for owners of the set, and the service pack has also been released that provided replacement parts as well as stronger elements. The original set had LEGO power functions included, and I believe this tile on the back is supposed to represent that. The cockpit of the model covers the entire width of the base of the excavator, but I wonder why it's positioned in the middle, seeing as the original set had the cockpit positioned in the side. I like the use of this blue element to make up the chair since the original set had a blue chair in its cockpit. I like the use of grey Technic beams to make up the traction bits on the bottom, but I would like to question the parts used to connect said beams. Not the physical element, but their color choice, as something feels off about having to use red and orange in something like this. I mean, you never really see these colors in standard construction vehicles, don't you? The arm of the excavator is made up of two Technic beams that are connected via black Technic pins so you can pose the arm. My favorite part of this model is the usage of a small catapult element that makes up the scooper of the excavator. In contrast, probably my least favorite part of this model is the positioning of said scooper. The official instructions ask you to put the catapult element in the very edge, however that's not how excavators like this are built, as the scooper is usually placed on the very middle, whereas the arm of the excavator also starts in the middle. It could have been fixed easily during the final design process to place the scooper in the middle, but I am not too bothered by this issue. This model may be my least favorite, but it's still pretty decent, and at least it gives a few Technic beams, some parts you don't really see all that often in LEGO sets like this. This is not the first ninja-based theme by LEGO, as the first ninja theme ran in the late 1990s and was based around the samurai and ninjas of feudal Japan, but the theme was short-lived. Ninjago was introduced in 2011 and its first sets had these spinners complete with an entire game built around them, and the 4-part TV special was released to coincide with them. The following year, Ninjago released a second wave of sets and spinners, and the first full season of the Ninjago TV series also aired the same year. LEGO originally planned to end Ninjago in 2013 to be replaced by Legends of Chima, but was eventually decided against due to Ninjago's popularity. While LEGO still released Legends of Chima, Ninjago continued releasing sets and airing more episodes and eventually outlasted Legends of Chima, which ended in 2015. To further back up on why LEGO planned on ending Ninjago in 2013, its TV season of that year was when the final battle was to take place, and even its sets advertised the final battle arc of the story on their box arts. Among the sets released at the time was Lloyd's Golden Dragon, which the 90 years model is based on. There is less gold on this Golden Dragon than the original set, not because of part quantity but because of how much gold is seen here. A black 2x10 brick makes up the entire body and from the bottom of the dragon head to the tail. Like some previous models, 1x1 eyes are used and you can change it to give the Golden Dragon unique expressions. There is space on its back, so if you want to, you can put a midi figure on it so you can ride the dragon. Its two tails are represented by a black whatever you call this piece, but it has those two things sticking out to represent those two tails to keep that detail. Each of its legs and feet are one element. Again, this is probably for the sake of design simplicity, but they do not really affect visual appeal and they won't be seen much when you look at the model at certain angles. The amount of green on this model likely references that it was Lloyd's Dragon. Yes, the original set had green elements, but in a darker shade, and the gold was more dominant there. In the original set, the claws of the dragon are gold, and on the 90 years model, these 3 teeth pieces are meant to represent that. Probably my favorite detail of this model is the use of gold sword pieces that make up the wings, just like how the original Golden Dragon set used gold blade elements. If this adds anything to the conversation, LEGO re-released the Golden Dragon set in 2019 as part of their Ninjago Legacy line. The Golden Dragon in that set was built in a smaller scale than the original but kept much detail from it, albeit there are still differences, but overall was a remake of the original Golden Dragon. LEGO Friends released in 2012 and succeeded Belleville as the girl theme, which was discontinued in 2009. The theme is centered around the lives of 5 girls who are the main characters of Friends. Like its brother theme, City, Friends have their own sub-themes based on the girls' interests, ranging from summer, agriculture, animal rescue, pop music, etc. It introduced the mini doll type of minifigure, which is bigger than the standard minifig, but was more customizable than Belleville mini dolls. Despite its rocky start and controversial launch, LEGO Friends doubled sales expectations and became one of LEGO's most successful themes in recent times. Looking at the structure of the 90 years model, it's pretty similar to the mini city police station in terms of scale, and they're even built on a 4x6 plate. Going back, the 90 years model did a great job at capturing the essence of the original set, which I forgot to mention is the Friendship House set released presumably in 2017, but I will get to that later. The garage from the original set is pushed back and into the building in the 90 years model, but is still present through this white window frame element. The 3 levels of the house are colored accordingly like the original set, but unlike its brother build, the city police station, there is no room for anything at the back because it's all one flat space. But why do you even care if you can't even put anything in there at all? This is a mini desk build to begin with and not a pocket-sized dollhouse. The purple roof is recreated with simple slope bricks, but the tip of the roof is moved more into the middle, and the pink flag waves from the rooftop, though in the original model, the flag was found at the top of a fireman's pole, which is clearly not remade here, but I'll still give this model a pass. My favorite detail of this 90 years model is the use of a small 1x1 pump piece to represent the barbecue grill from the original set. And I find that really interesting, and in my opinion, that detail alone is enough to make this model really good for me. I'm just kidding, this model is already really good. Some reviews I've seen about this set, specifically when referring to this model, said that the box showed the wrong date that the original Friendship House set was released in. The original set was released in January 1, 2018, so they're not wrong about this error. My own theory is that probably the graphic designer of this box art referenced an internal document from LEGO and saw the date that the Friendship House set was to be sent to LEGO ambassadors for review and likely mistook that as the release date. While the actual release date is not that far off from the 90-year set box says, this error is also not wrong to a certain degree, but I'll leave that up to your discussion. LEGO Dots was originally planned to release in early 2019, but it was silently postponed a year later to 2020. Some sources describe the premise as being able to customize jewelry and accessories, and while they're not exactly wrong, LEGO Dots primarily revolves around using those small 1x1 tiles to customize not just accessories, but also stationary items like notebooks, special pens, bag tags, heck, even signs and brick-built pen holders. Among those pen holder sets is the Pineapple, which is what the 90 years model is based on, and is the only set featured here that you can still get today as of this video. It's available on Shopee Mall and Last Mall for almost the same price, and it even comes with a sick container too, so maybe I'm considering buying this set at some point. Back to the topic. The 90 years model is a cute build. It uses a handful of snot bricks to put the plates on. You can't really do much about the gap at the back of the model, but there is still some space, so maybe you can leave a little surprise. Of course, to accommodate the scale, the eyes are printed on single 1x1 tiles instead of using 4 1x1 tiles. If you look closely, the pattern of the original set is recreated here. Even the facial features of the original set carried over to the 90 years model with just a few 1x1 tiles, and I'm glad that they didn't have to use the Mixel eyes for this because it would have looked weird and looked less like the original set it was based on, so I'm glad we got special eyepieces for this. I wish they included more in my opinion. My favorite part of this build is that it uses a grass piece for its hair to complete the whole pineapple thing. Other than finally being able to touch grass, I'm glad that they included this piece here and not use the brick built method. I don't really see this piece a lot in sets I come across, so it's nice to see this included in a set a lot of people have their eyes on. Given that LEGO Dots is centered around customization in 1x1 tiles, this is probably passable as a micro pseudo dots set within this LEGO Classic set. Funny enough, you actually get a handful of 1x1 tiles in the extra bags included, so it's kind of a micro starter set if you want to try the concept of LEGO Dots for yourself if you haven't already when you bought the set, so that's pretty cool. The experience does not stop at the 15 mini builds, technically 17 included in the set. There are 5 additional bags of LEGO elements included and are sorted by color. Each of the 5 bags has a smaller bag included that has smaller pieces, so I'll look at that later. I'm personally more focused on unique and noteworthy elements when viewing the contents of these bags from a parts pack perspective because I don't really see those kinds of elements in my collection that often, and makes me wonder what I can build around that part or what it could potentially contribute to any of my future builds. I sorted out all these pieces from their bags after I held on from opening them for almost a month just for this part of the video to see which pieces are worth noting, so you better hit that like and sub button already. I actually noticed this likely unintentional but pretty cool detail. If you pay attention to the colors of each bag, it does begin to remind you of the old LEGO system logo from 1964 to 1972. I'll show you pictures of the parts themselves from each of the 5 bags, but I'll name some noteworthy elements, but you should still get a good look if there are any LEGO elements that catch your attention. So here are the whites and beiges, and you do get a lot of tan here, but probably the most interesting piece of note here are these 1x2 snot bricks because they're in skin color like the ones you see on licensed minifigures. The reds, purples, and pinks get you a hefty amount of pink, purple, and magenta pieces, which is always welcome since those are colors you don't really find a lot of back then, at least in my experience. The yellows, oranges, and browns have a hefty amount of variety in them. 2 more Technic beams are included, but over here on the back are the 2x2 Trance yellow slopes, which is the first time they came in that color like I mentioned earlier. The greens and blues contain a decent amount of teal elements included, which I believe is quite a rare color, and it's said that LEGO has been pushing elements of this color to their sets for a while now, so that's welcome here. But there is a lot of bright blue in this. Finally, the blacks and grays have a decent selection. 2 more Technic beams in gray are present, plus some diagonal pieces, and another of that piece from the mini Black Seas Barracuda is also here. Of course, let's not forget the smaller elements that come in the smaller bags. I already mentioned the extra dots earlier, so they came from those as well. The reds, violets, and pinks have a bunch of flowers or roses, whatever you want to call them, plus a Technic axle, though there are not a lot of places in this set where you can attach it. The whites and beiges have a really good amount of gold pieces, especially the 4 gold bars, and you do get a lot of Wixhael eyes. The blacks and grays have a couple of Technic pins and some gray bar pieces, as well as some, well, I would not call them magnifying glass pieces, but they're pretty close in my opinion. The blues and greens have a couple of small olive green elements, plus a lone blue Technic pin. And the yellows and browns, in my opinion, that bag has the least interesting selection except for that half tile half plate. Of course, if you want to look at the part selection of the models, I'll show that as well, though it already took long for me to say which of the interesting pieces from all the models sort of stand out to me, so I'll let you decide for yourself which pieces catch your attention if that's what you're into. But yeah, pretty good part selection and variety here. You have a box full of parts left over after building that you can work with if you want to get creative, and they were actually able to fit in this suitcase, which comes in another LEGO Classic set, which I might get to in a future video. But going back to how it all fits, well, it's overloaded when you try to put in the pieces of all the models, so maybe leave the 15 or 17 models as is and keep those pieces in your collection so you can work with them later. In the end, you pretty much got a lot of parts at your disposal, so if you want to, maybe you could try and make your own mini interpretation of an old LEGO set you had before. I know I did. The amount of parts included and their variety, plus the special anniversary theme, justifies the price of this set in my opinion, and I'm really glad that we didn't get these 16 or 18 mini builds as polybag sets, which would have been harder to get, at least in my experience. Wait, did I count the models wrong? Well, some of the pieces that came in these bags actually make up the hidden bonus model of the set. Well, buckle up for one more LEGO history lesson, guys! At the time, LEGO was trying to branch out and released a bunch of themes that strayed away from the standard LEGO system they were known for. Entirely new building systems were introduced and others revolved around different concepts of play features. At first glance, you can't even tell Galidor is a LEGO toy. Galidor was among LEGO's experimental themes to try to see what LEGO would be like without the brick. LEGO Galidor was a line of customizable action figures and even had a TV show. Sadly, the theme was considered a failure due to complex modes of their parts which cost LEGO a lot, plus the elements limited compatibility with other LEGO themes. It was among the themes that contributed to LEGO slowly descending into near bankruptcy in the early 2000s. LEGO Classic sets often feature an extra model somewhere in their set to encourage creativity, and the 90 Years of Play set is no exception. Although it doesn't show up in the box art nor in any of the pages in the 2 instruction booklets included, the designer actually posted it on Twitter and even challenged Galidor fans to guess what figures it was based on. The gimmick behind LEGO Galidor was that the figures had these removable limbs that you could swap around between them, which is called glitching according to the Galidor lore. The 90 Years model really did a good job of encapsulating this gimmick as it looks like a mishmash of pieces in different colors. Huge thanks to this guy for saving us the trouble of going through countless Galidor figs and concluding which part was which. So the following are the Galidor pieces on which the build is based on, and I'm probably going to mispronounce some of these. The left leg comes from Awkward. The right leg was from Euripides, the left arm belongs to Jens, and the right arm was from Tager. The torso's from Nepal, I forgot to include that in the script. A Nick Bluetooth figure included 2 wings that were supposed to go on his arms, but I would like to question why that was still included in the 90 Years model if you can't even put 2 additional arms on the original figure if you can only put 4 different parts on. But overall, I am pretty impressed with how much this hodgepodge of parts resembled the original figures. The designer posted on Twitter that we can also build a normal or unglinched version of Nick Bluetooth, but did not provide any instructions for it until he posted an image of what is likely that a while after. It's pretty close and pretty good in my opinion. Dark blue and yellow shoes, the gray pants, even his blue shirt, but he still has the wing arms on him, but I'll give that a pass. I don't really know anything about Galidor, so I'm not sure if those wing pieces are his signature glitch transformation, but I'm quite happy with this bonus model. Especially because it gives another theme a chance to shine again, it is kind of like a hidden Easter egg with its own history behind it. This set may appeal to a certain audience because of the nostalgia factor, but whether you're a new LEGO fan, one who has stuck around for a while, or even returning LEGO fans like myself, I recommend you get this as this is a very great set. The models of generic LEGO classic sets rarely have any significant background behind them and are just generic models splashed with color and sometimes share an overarching theme, sometimes none. But here, there is something different about the models compared to other LEGO classic sets. Yes, there's the overarching theme of LEGO's 90th anniversary that can be seen here, but it's that specific theme that makes the set special. Remember, these are microscale models of iconic LEGO sets, and there are lots of people who, chances are, have an attachment to at least one of these models and or the theme they represent. But it's the experiences and nostalgia that people felt when seeing these models that made the set exciting and that it makes them want to get this set in the first place. You could say that there are LEGO fans who never had any attachment to any of these models in their themes, and I kind of agree with you to a certain extent, as not every LEGO theme is represented here. But even if you never had any attachment or nostalgia for any of these models, or even if this set is your first time playing with LEGO bricks, it shouldn't stop you from getting this set. I still would highly recommend you get this set regardless of your circumstance. This is a LEGO classic set after all, and the parts are meant to be used for whatever you want with it, but in the end, it's your choice to make. If you're considering purchasing this set, I would like to remind you again that this set costs 3,500 pesos. If you're more into parts quantity, you still have other options, but in terms of the set itself, it is just as good as other LEGO classic sets. The parts variety themselves are to be expected for a LEGO classic set, but it is up to you to decide if the variety of parts or the amount of background behind the models justifies the price of this set for you. If you're interested in the parts, of course there are lots of unique pieces in this set you won't find in other classic sets or other sets in general. If you're solely into the fact that this is a special set that celebrates 90 years of LEGO, that's fine as well. Though it might not be that special anymore if you purchase the set in a few years, so who knows how long it'll be before LEGO retires the set. But by then the 90th anniversary celebrations will be over and end up being nothing more than a special parts pack, a neat collector's item, or maybe even a good set to invest in. Overall, this is a great set and even makes a great gift to any LEGO fan. If you had any attachment or felt any nostalgia from the models, then good for you. It makes sense that LEGO would release a set like this for the 90th anniversary, as it perfectly captures the message or theme of the anniversary title, 90 Years of Play through this set. Eventually, I might take these models apart for my own mocks, but I can still see myself displaying them all on my shelf. As a returning LEGO fan, it was nice getting this set in the midst of me getting back into my old LEGO hobby recently, and it was a blast reliving the fun I had as a kid playing with LEGO even as a guy nearing college, and I'm personally not ashamed of that as even the grown-ups still have a passion for LEGO with an entire community of those adult LEGO fans. Even some working adults always find some time to have fun playing with their LEGO bricks, and there are even sets meant for them. While LEGO will continue to evolve and branch out to other audiences, its community will continue to grow, but its core will always remain the same: imaginative creativity and fun through play, as it has been for the last 90 years.